Yeah, I'll share this deployment story from an operation we did in Afghanistan in 2008. And to give you context, the decisions that we make in a split second will remain with us for a long time. And I had an opportunity to work with a gentleman named Dr. Preston Klein, who runs an organization called MCTI, Mission Critical Team Institute. And he is a wealth of knowledge, and he's a really good dude. In one of his discussions not too long ago, he spoke about residue, and he uses this word very candidly, where residue can be good and it can be bad depending on what effect it's had on us. So I really like the wording of what residue represents, which is that is left over from an experience in the past. This particular deployment story, we were chasing this one high-value target for quite some time who was known and responsible for killing Americans, Canadians, and British. So this guy was on the radar for quite some time. The teams that were operating at that time were all trying to search this guy and find this guy. So the mission set was kill, capture. If we find him, he's dying. Obviously, if he's armed, if he's not armed, he's coming with us, and we're gonna get some more information out of him. That was the intent. And in Afghanistan, we have different areas of responsibility. So the Canadian contingent had an area where this guy was on our radar. So we chased him quite a bit, and he eluded us on several occasions. And then finally one night, we hit a compound where in the summertime in Afghanistan, the Argadam region, well, most of Afghanistan, summertimes are hot. And it would be not uncommon, 3 o'clock in the morning, it's still 35 degrees Celsius out. So a common practice for the Taliban is they would often sleep on the roofs of these compounds, and that was for a couple of reasons. It was a little bit cooler up there, so they would set up bug nets around themselves, and the men would sleep on the roof. And they'd also give themselves an early warning if guys like us were trying to find them. And then typically the women and children would sleep somewhere inside the compound. This was a common practice during the summer months. So as we track and hit this one particular compound, it was myself and a few other guys in this team that were climbing up onto the rooftop. So you can picture 3 o'clock in the morning, very quiet, stealthful approach. We get up onto the compound. And as we're approaching, we see some bodies laying down under this bug net. And as we're approaching, get close enough to identify who this guy is, and we could see his hands, but couldn't see his face, couldn't see his hands at the time. And as I get about a foot away from his feet, I confirm that's the dude that we're looking for. So I have a wrist map, looking at it, I'm confirming it, that's him 100%. And as we're approaching, you can imagine they can feel and start to hear the movement, and they're starting to come awake. And I made eye contact with this gentleman at literally the edge of his feet. And to the right of him was an AK-47. So I have a split second to make a decision. This is our guy. There's an AK-47 right beside him. I'm within the realm to take this shot and eliminate this guy for everything that he's responsible for. The professional side said no, because technically he's not armed. Even though the AK-47 was less than arm's reach away, and I could not see his hand at the time, I could see his face, confirm that was our guy. Now I have a decision to make. What happened was his hands slowly came out from underneath this blanket that he was covered up with, so I could see his hands, still identify that the AK-47 is still within reach. And then as I gave him a kick on the foot to get his attention, that's when his head and hands came up, and then we detained him and took custody of him pretty quickly. Long story short, we take this guy off the X, hand him over for questioning, and whatever happened to him thereafter, not privy to, and it's really none of my business, because that part of our job was complete. That bothered me for quite some time, because as we get time to think about what we did and why we did it, this guy was known shithead, evil, doing a lot of just grievous things to good people, and he deserved to die. And I had the opportunity, as did some of my teammates who were in close proximity, but we chose not to on that particular night. So it bothered me because whatever happens after questioning, there's a high probable chance that at some point this guy will get released, and then he's back to doing what he's doing. So that ate me up a little bit, because I felt like I failed in eliminating an opportunity, eliminating an evil body that would most likely be doing the same thing in the future. So that bothered me for quite some time. The residue that I carry with me on that is I find ways to create a cognitive bias with the decision that I made. So confirmation bias is when we hang on to something that supports how we feel. So the way that I dealt with it, and still kind of dealing with it, is the professional side of me said we don't murder people. We eliminate those who are armed and are posing resistance. In this case, not everything lined up as according to plan, and I made the decision to keep the firearm on safe and just handle this guy physically. So the reason that I share that story is because I'm not giving any names, I'm not giving any hard details on what we did, but there was an element there where I believe I would have been justified, and I believe the guys that were on the roof with me that day, they would have supported it had I decided to pull the trigger and eliminate this guy, but I chose not to. So the residue that stays with me today is, did I make the right decision? I believe I did, but at the same token, I don't know where this high value target is today, and I don't know what he's doing or what he's capable of.